I never thought I'd be sharing this story, but here I am. They say confession is good for the soul, right? Well, buckle up because this is one hell of a cautionary true story. It all started last Christmas Eve. I was 22, home from college for winter break, and Dad had just returned from a business trip to Japan, and I was decorating our massive Douglas fir while Mariah Carey blasted through the speakers. "Linda, honey, can you turn that down a bit?" Dad called from the kitchen. "I'm trying to wrap some presents." I rolled my eyes but obliged, lowering the volume on "All I Want for Christmas Is You." As I adjusted the star atop the tree, I caught a glimpse of Dad sneaking upstairs with several shopping bags. Curious, I watched as he carefully stashed them in his closet before coming back down. "What's in the bags, Dad?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He looked flustered for a second before composing himself. "Oh, just some last-minute gifts. Nothing for you to worry about, pumpkin." I shrugged it off, but something about his reaction stuck with me. Dad had always been a terrible liar, and I could tell he was hiding something. But hey, it was Christmas. Maybe he'd just gotten me something extra special this year. As night fell, the house filled with the scent of gingerbread and pine, Dad and I sat on the couch watching It's a Wonderful Life for probably the millionth time. I snuggled up against him, feeling safe and warm. "I'm glad you're home, Lindy," he said softly, using my childhood nickname. "It's not the same without you here." I looked up at him, noticing the gray creeping into his temples. At 45, he was still handsome, tall and fit, with kind blue eyes that crinkled when he smiled. Sometimes I forgot how young he'd been when I was born. "I'm glad to be home too, Dad," I replied, giving him a squeeze. As the credits rolled, we said our goodnights and headed to bed. But sleep wouldn't come. I tossed and turned, too excited about Christmas morning. Around midnight, I decided to sneak downstairs for some hot cocoa. The house was dark and quiet as I passed down the stairs. But as I passed Dad's room, I noticed a sliver of light under the door. Curious, I paused, hearing rustling sounds within. Before I could stop myself, I gently pushed the door open a crack. What I saw made my jaw drop. Dad was sitting on his bed, surrounded by tissue paper and ribbons, and in his hands was the most gorgeous red lace lingerie set I'd ever seen. My heart started racing as I watched him carefully fold the delicate garments and place them in a gift box. 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind. Did Dad have a secret girlfriend? Was he seeing someone behind my back? But as he held up the bra, examining it closely, a chill ran down my spine. I recognized that size. It was the same as mine. I stumbled back from the door, my mind reeling. There had to be some explanation, right? Maybe it was for his secretary or something. But deep down, I knew the truth. Those lacy underthings were meant for me. I barely slept that night, tossing and turning as I tried to make sense of what I'd seen. By morning, I'd made up my mind to confront Dad about it. I mean, what else could I do? Pretend I hadn't seen anything? So I did something crazy. I snuck into his room while he was in the shower and found the lingerie. With shaking hands, I stripped off my flannel pajamas and slipped into the red lace bra and panties. They fit perfectly, of course. I threw my robe on over top and headed downstairs. Dad was in the kitchen making coffee when I walked in. He turned to greet me, and I saw the exact moment he realized what I was wearing. The mug slipped from his hand, shattering on the tile floor. Linda," he stammered, his face going pale. "What are you—" I untied my robe, letting it fall open to reveal the lingerie underneath. "Is this my Christmas present, Daddy?" I asked softly. Linda. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the drip of the coffee maker and our ragged breathing. Dad's eyes roamed over my body, a mixture of guilt and desire in his gaze. Finally, he broke the silence. "I'm so sorry, Linda," he whispered. "I never meant for you to find out. I don't know what's wrong with me." I took a step closer, my heart pounding. "How long have you felt this way about me?" Dad ran a hand through his hair, looking anguished. He admitted. "Ever since you turned 18, I've tried to fight it, to push these feelings away, but they just keep getting stronger. I should have been disgusted. I should have run away screaming. But instead I felt a warmth spreading through my body, because the truth was I'd been harboring my own forbidden feelings for quite some time. "Dad," I said softly, I think I feel the same way." His eyes widened in shock. "You can't mean that, Linda. It's wrong. I'm your father. For God's sake." I closed the distance between us, placing a hand on his chest. I could feel his heart racing beneath my palm. "I know it's wrong," I whispered, "but I can't help how I feel. Can you?" For a moment, we stood frozen, teetering on the edge of a cliff. Then, almost in slow motion, Dad leaned down and pressed his lips to mine. The kiss was gentle at first, hesitant and unsure, but as I responded, eagerly wrapping my arms around his neck, it quickly grew more heated. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathless. "We can't do this," Dad said, even as he pulled me closer. "If anyone found out." I silenced him with another kiss. "No one has to know," I murmured against his lips. "It can be our secret." What happened next was a blur of passion and pleasure. Afterward, as we lay tangled together on the cold tile, reality began to set in. What had we done? How could we ever go back to normal after this? But before we could really process it, the doorbell rang. Panic flooded through me as I remembered. Mom and my stepdad were coming over for Christmas breakfast. We scrambled to our feet, hurriedly straightening our clothes. As Dad went to answer the door, I raced upstairs to change. My mind was spinning as I threw on a sweater and jeans. How were we going to act normal after what just happened? Somehow we managed to get through breakfast without arousing suspicion. We exchanged gifts, ate cinnamon rolls, and laughed at my stepdad's corny jokes. But underneath it all was a current of electricity every time Dad and I made eye contact. That night, after everyone had gone home, we talked for hours. We both knew that what we'd done was wrong, on so many levels. But we also couldn't deny the intense connection between us. In the end, we made a decision. We would keep our relationship a secret, indulging only on special occasions like holidays. The rest of the time, we'd be father and daughter, in private, lovers in private. For the next few months, we lived in a whirlwind of secret rendezvous and stolen moments. Every time I came home from college, we'd find excuses to be alone together. We were careful, always watching over our shoulders. But the thrill of our forbidden romance was intoxicating. But as time went on, the weight of our secret began to take its toll. I found myself lying constantly to friends and family, making up excuses for why I couldn't date anyone at school. Dad grew distant from his friends, afraid they might somehow sense what was going on. The guilt started to eat away at both of us. I'd wake up in the middle of the night drenched in sweat from nightmares where we were discovered. Dad started drinking more heavily, trying to numb the shame he felt. Things came to a head that summer when Mom invited me to spend a week at her beach house. I made up an excuse about summer classes, knowing I'd be spending the time with Dad instead. But as I was packing, she confronted me. "Linda, what's going on with you?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. "You've been so distant lately. Are you in some kind of trouble?" I tried to brush her off, but she wouldn't let it go, and suddenly looking into my mother's worried eyes, I couldn't take it anymore. The whole sordid story came spilling out between sobs. Mom was stunned, of course. Angry, disgusted, heartbroken. But most of all, she was worried about me. She helped me see that what Dad and I had wasn't love. It was a toxic, abusive situation that was destroying both of us. With Mom's support, I finally got the courage to end things with Dad. It wasn't easy. He begged, pleaded, even threatened suicide at one point. But I stood my ground, knowing it was the only way to save both of us. The aftermath was brutal. Dad checked himself into rehab for his drinking problem. I started intense therapy to deal with the trauma and confusion of what had happened. Mom divorced my stepdad, unable to trust men after what her ex-husband had done. It's been 2 years since that Christmas morning that changed everything. I'd love to say I'm fully healed, But the truth is, I still struggle every day with what happened. I have trust issues, panic attacks, and a lot of unresolved anger. But I'm getting better. Therapy has helped me understand that none of this was my fault. Dad took advantage of me, manipulating my emotions and using his position of authority to fulfill his twisted desires. It wasn't love. It was abuse, plain and simple. I'm sharing this story now as a warning to others who might find themselves in a similar situation. No matter how strong your feelings might seem, a relationship between a parent and child can never be healthy or consensual. The power dynamic is too unbalanced. The potential for lasting damage too great. If you're struggling with inappropriate feelings for a family member, please seek help. Talk to a therapist, a counselor, anyone you trust. Don't let yourself be drawn into a situation that will destroy your life and the lives of those around you. As for me, I'm focusing on healing and building a new life for myself. I'm back in school studying psychology with the goal of helping other survivors of abuse. I'm slowly learning to trust and love again, though it's a long road. Dad and I haven't spoken since everything came out. Last I heard, he was still in rehab trying to come to terms with what he'd done. Part of me hopes he can find peace and forgiveness someday. But a bigger part knows that some bridges once burned can never be rebuilt. This Christmas, I'll be spending the holiday with Mom and some close friends. We'll decorate a tree, exchange gifts, and make new memories, untainted by secrets and shame. And as I hang that star on top of the tree, I'll say a silent prayer of thanks for second chances and the strength to overcome even the darkest chapters of our lives. Remember, love should lift you up, not drag you down into secrecy and guilt. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Trust your instincts, seek help, and never be afraid to speak your truth. Because in the end, that's the only way to truly set yourself free.